When it comes to the stigma, what we're talking about today is the use of let's change the stigma of mental health. And it really is irritating me because this is used by your services all over. It's been used for I've been doing this for 2.5 years, and it's been used for that long. And when we really stop and think about it, there's is this really the right approach? Like when we stop and think about this, mental health, when we talk about mental health with you guys, there is such a big stigma and a negative mental connotation that goes along with this. There is a distrust with a lot of admins and the frontline guys that if, as soon as you're saying we need to change this stigma on mental health, we are quite often they just keep repeating this over and over. We need to change this. We need to change this. We need to change this. But they're not actually delving into, first off, why are more people not hopping on board and being okay with the word mental health? Why, um, why are people fearing this? Why are people backing away? And why are we still having so many mental health issues? And so this is where it really irritates me is there's I'm going to go through three different points as to why I feel that we need to stop just saying change the stigma of mental health. Stop it, stop all this talk, and actually put this into action and give you guys what you really need and what you want. Not just putting money and lip service into all of these campaigns that are out there, and there's money being spent on these things that you guys either don't want or aren't working for you guys. So that dives into my first point with this is first off, is everything that's going on with you a mental health issue? One of my favorite books is called Switch. It's by Dan and Chip Heath. And when I read this, I kept thinking over and over and over again about services. And I was like, man, if services actually implemented things this way, it would make such a difference. So, what the book talks about is when somebody is going into a situation to try to solve a problem, quite often we go and we're just looking at the problem. How can we fix it? But that starts getting us very dialed in on one thing, and we're missing so many other things that are out there. So, an example that they give in this book, which I find very fascinating, is in a very rural, very poor community in the Philippines, and they were having a huge malnutrition issue. And him, his wife, and his child were to go in and fix this problem. So he went in and he went, well, there's no way. They don't have the finances, they don't have the structure to be able to start just bringing in healthy food. And the culture wasn't open to it either. So what he did was he actually went in and he weighed all of the kids in the community. And he weighed them and found out that there were some kids in there that actually had a that actually were of normal weight and they were healthy kids. So what they did was they started talking to those parents and found out what was working. They found the bright spots. And so when they went into this, they found out, okay, this is working for these kids. They found out that in that culture, up until age, don't quote me, 7 or 9 or something, the kids lived off of rice. They didn't believe that anything else was needed before then. They didn't know. And after that, though, because of economics, what they did was they would find in the rice paddies, they would get take greens, weeds that were growing the rice paddies, and they would collect those greens and weeds and they were adding these to their kids' rice, the healthy kids. And they were also taking the bugs in that and adding it. So the kids were getting good fats, protein, greens, and carbs. And that's what was helping them. So what they did was they found out that this is how in this community, this really small amount of people in this community were actually fixing this problem. And from there, they went in and they got those people to then start talking to the others in the community and teaching them what they were doing. Because had this man, this outsider, gone in and just started talking to people, um, they wouldn't have listened. This is supposed to work. This is what you should do. They actually got the village people to say. They weighed the kids. They showed the kids. They explained the differences of the health, what the healthy kids could and couldn't do, and the unhealthy couldn't, the risks. And then they explained what this family was doing. And then that family started teaching the other people how to gather the food and collect the food and make the food. And then that was so successful it extended into other villages. So from that, all I keep thinking of is in these services, they keep bringing in outside people to help all the time. People who have no idea. But then we have officers who, or fire, EMS, you guys who, through your own struggles on the job, you, some who were medicaled out ended up going to treatments and going to therapies and figuring out how to find their way of what worked for them to help with their PTSD. And then they have created programs themselves now. So, one of my questions is why aren't services going and talking to them instead of helping? As soon as you say mental health, you're getting everybody who is in the mental health field, which is a very broad field. That could be so many different things, but they may have absolutely no knowledge whatsoever to do with first responders. They have no idea about anything that goes on in your job. They don't know how the stressors of your shifts tax you. They don't know about the family guilt and the family frictions that happen because of the shifts. They don't know about all of the stressors that happen on your job and how to actually be functioning around your schedule and your life and things that go on. So they bring these outsiders in that are trying to fix a problem their way, the way they were trained in one dynamic. And that totally drives me crazy because really, is there only ever one solution to a problem? And are there only one factor at all into this problem? So my first point really is, first off, is everything truly a mental health issue? And if it is, or sorry, is it really truly a mental health issue? And why are we going in and just keep trying to do the same thing over and over and over again and banging our head against that wall instead of starting to think outside the box and really bringing things into you that first off you want, and secondly, that actually have been successful already in people. I think of this in other situations in your job too. Like there's so many times that there's something that happens and instead of looking and finding out, okay, what service did that situation not happen in? My husband, like they have divisions all over. What division did that not happen in? Okay, let's find out why it didn't happen in that division. What protocols are they doing? What's working for them already? And let's bring that into the other services, into the other divisions, instead of going up, there's a problem. Here's how we're going to solve it. And even the service or the person or the division that this is working for now has to change what's working, and they have to change it for our solution that may not work for any of them. So it's just such a one-dimensional approach as soon as you start saying, let's keep focusing on just mental health and doing it this one way. If something isn't working, change it. And if you ask me, talking about changing the stigma of mental health is not changing anything. So let's actually deal with the problem, which brings me to my second point, which is where mental health struggles and physical struggles have so many of the same symptoms. So when I first started doing this, I didn't work with people with PTSD because I work on the physical stress systems. I work on sleep, energy, motivation and drive, calming anxiety and depression from a physical standpoint. And I thought, because of all of the information that I'm hearing, that I was hearing then, is that everything is a mental health issue when it's PTSD. But I had so many guys coming to me saying, but I have these symptoms and my PTSD treatments aren't helping with those symptoms. The gut issues, cholesterol, blood pressure, we have gallbladders out, we have all of these issues in your gut, in your whole body that stem from physical symptoms as well. So if we're solely focusing on everything as being a mental health issue, we have guys in services that aren't even going to open up or admit it because they could lose their job, which is also their identity because they couldn't imagine doing anything else, also losing your pension. So they take that risk of bottling everything inside. I've had guys where they've come to me and they said, you know what, I don't know what's wrong. I know that something's wrong, so I've started going to therapy and I'm just going to talk and talk and talk about every single situation that's going on and try to figure out why my anxiety is so bad. In 2, maybe 3 weeks of starting to work with us, we started getting support in the stress system and we started working on some of their gut issues, just doing the basics, totally the basics still. Their anxiety has gone down tremendously, and their anxiety was ruling them before. Now, is this the same thing for everybody? Hell no. Every situation with every single person is different. And if we're going to pigeonhole you into thinking that every single issue is mental health, then we're missing out on everything else. What if it is the fact that you are totally, absolutely stressed because your child is maybe going through a crisis themselves? And as a parent, on top of 12-hour, 24-hour shifts, on top of everything, what if that is just taxing your body? Which brings us to taxing your body. If we're going to sit here and blame everything on a mental health issue, what do we know about sleep deprivation? Sleep deprivation is used to torture people. Sleep deprivation goes, it decreases your physical and your mental cognitive abilities, your thinking, focus, alertness, all of those things the same way alcohol does. And how many, you guys are working 12, 24-hour. My husband yesterday, and this is no disrespect to his service, this was situational. As I'm recording this, yesterday the Chauvin verdict came out. My husband is public order call outs. He's not on their main team when they need extra people. He's called out. He got home and was home for less than an hour after his regular shift, and he had to go out to a call out because they announced that the verdict was being told and they had to prepare in case things happened. He was off until midnight and he started work at 7 again this morning. So by the time he got home, slept, got ready, got back to the office for his shift today. That means he did not get a proper sleep and recovery. This happens all of the time on your job. We're looking at fire EMS right now. A lot of you guys, I hear about 96 hours straight. 96. Now, these are issues in services that are not being addressed. How can we ask you to go and do a 96-hour stretch and not give you time to recover after and expect that your body is going to be fine, that your brain is going to be fine, that you're not going to be pushing your system to the max? Since day one on the job, you guys are pushed to the max physically. I don't know why your shifts are the way that they are. I hear of different shift schedules all over. Fire EMS usually 24 hours. Now, and I wonder where this comes from as well. Change. We don't like change. We will fight like hell to stay in discomfort than to make change. When we come to 24-hour shifts, I've often wondered, and please correct me if I'm wrong because I don't know why there's 24-hour shifts. One of my ideas that I've thought is possible is that maybe in the past, before service, when cities weren't as large and when services weren't as big and when call volumes weren't as high, there weren't as many calls on night shift. But the guys slept at the station in order just in case it happened on the one-offs. But now in certain services, there are calls back to back to back. There are fire, there's EMS calls, and fire and EMS has to go to the same calls. You're going constantly to all of these calls back to back. We've got 12-hour shifts for police officers where they're doing two day shifts in a row, then 2 nights. But then I hear of other services that are doing 3 months of day shifts, 4 on, 4 off, 3 months of nights, 4 on, 4 off. How can one service do that and one not the other? And the thing is the ones that are doing all days for a while, all dates for a night, nights for a while, they are coming to me less than the ones are 2 days, 2 nights, because their physical stress systems are totally out of whack. So as soon as we start saying that all of these symptoms, sleep issues, tired and wired, short fuse, easily frustrated, brain fog where you can't think, memory issues, anxiety, depression, hypervigilance, where you can never ever shut it off, and you start wondering what is going on with you, because there is so much clout, because there is so much money and time and effort put into that. This is a mental health issue, of which, yes, the traumas on your job definitely have a part in. But there are so many other factors that we are not even looking at because we are so focused on this one thing. So if we are so focused on the mental health side, we are missing out on all of these other things, which also takes that, I guess, I don't even know how to say this right now. It takes the pressure off of your service to make changes. It takes the pressure off of your service to say, hey, we're actually doing things in our service that are not of the betterment of our members, and we should probably look at that and change it. Instead, they're looking at solely your trauma calls. They're saying, oh, and that's an outside factor. That is something your services don't have control over, the trauma calls that you go to. That is an outside factor. So when we are always putting this, let's change the stigma on mental health, that totally takes the eye, the vision, the views off of what things can be done in your service to actually take pressure, allow your bodies to recover, stop taxing your systems out. A lot of you got into this job because this is your calling. This is who you are. And yes, when you get in, you know it's 24 hours, you know it's 12 hours, but you don't really know what that means to your body until you've been in, with most people, 5-10 years, and also when kids come into the picture. Things change then. And there are not supports in your systems for that. So if we're solely focusing on mental health, we're missing out on all of these things that can be changed and fixed and adapted to support you better, so that you then can have more of the resiliency and strength in your stress systems, and you have the backing and the support of your leadership team in order to then be more open when a traumatic situation does occur, so that you're more open to dealing with it and mitigating it, because you know you have your services support. Which brings me to my third point. So my third point is leadership. Why one reason this Change the Stigma of Mental Health irritates me so much is because I feel like it's all talk, no action. Your leadership is spending money on all of these campaigns. It's all putting it out. And to me, a lot of it is lip service. Because when I start speaking with people that are in leadership, a lot of them are not digging into the things that they want you to dig into. How many of them are currently going to therapy? How many of them even understand what types of therapy are out there? Do they know the difference between going to a trauma therapist, going to somebody that specializes in childhood traumas, going to someone that specializes in PTSD traumas on the job? Do they know about the difference between a therapist that deals with EMDR or ART or cognitive behavior therapies? All of these guys that are saying, let's change the stigma of mental health, some of them are very knowledgeable in this, but have they tried each one to really understand the difference? One size does not fit all. And there is a reason for each of them. And when you go to them as well as a leader who is talking about we need to change this mental health, as the people that are a part of your wellness departments, are your wellness departments actually coming on the road with you? Are they actually doing blocks of shifts with you to see how your bodies are stressed, to see what is going on, to really experience it so that they know how to help you? Are they also going and making sure that the people that they're bringing in truly understand your life on the job? So when we're talking about let's change the stigma of mental health, why don't we actually just stop talking about it and take action? And why don't we stop just looking at the mental health aspect of this? Why don't we start looking at the entire picture? I know that what I do is not the entire picture. I know that what I do is a piece of the puzzle. When we look at athletes, competitive athletes, they have mindset coaches, they have therapists, they have physiotherapists to fix their injuries, they have coaches like me that help to actually biohack and support their stress systems so that they can recover faster and peak during competitions when they need it. And they're doing all of this work in all different facets. So if we're only going to work, let's think about an athlete, a sports player. Where would they be in their career if they only ever focused on the mental health side of things? How would their performance be on the court? How would they be pushing 12 hours, 24 hours? How would they be when they're putting all of their equipment on? For fire, that's almost 100 pounds for you guys. For EMS, you guys are lifting people, all of your, like, doing your tactical training. If we need so many different aspects for you guys, and there is not a one size fits all. We need to build resiliency instead of solely talking about mental health. We need to really get that resiliency out there and make sure that you guys have all of the tools, all of the support from your system, from your services, where they are actually going in and asking you questions as to where do you need help. Bring in relationship counselors that truly understand what it is like to be in a first responder relationship. Bring in counselors that help with children and families of first responders so they can go in and help you see the different signs, how to actually understand how to navigate your kids around your life and what you're dealing with. I mean, last week, 2 weeks ago, we were having a conversation with my kids about my husband. Well, sorry, about a month ago, we were having a conversation about my husband going to the dump to look for 2 different bodies for 2 different homicide cases. My kids are 7 and 9 years old. We have these conversations. These aren't conversations that are normal, but how do we navigate this? And then last Friday, my husband was on a missing persons. That was a possible homicide. And then they also found a missing deceased person while they were searching, which was a possible drug overdose while they're on there. And so I'm explaining to my kids and very honest with them. I'm like, hey guys, I said they just found another body. This is what happened. We talk about drugs in a realistic way in our family. My kids understand them. They understand what happens from a very logical point of view. But that's how we handle in our family. Every family handles it different. So what about having roundtables with people, especially when people are having new kids, about how do you handle these conversations with your kids? How do you manage the stage of toddlers with your kids, with sleeping, with schedules, with your relationships and helping around the house, with you getting downtime? There are so many different things that need to be focused on that are not being focused on because all of the focus is on changing the stigma and the mental health. So that's where I stand with everything. To reiterate what I was talking about, is that point one is that not everything is a mental health issue. If we also pigeonhole ourselves into thinking that we just need to solve this problem instead of looking at what is actually working in each individual service and talking to each other and finding out what is truly working for you guys and bring in more of that and add in more of that, that will solve a problem better than thinking, hey, here's what one problem is. Let's put all of our focus on that, on fixing it instead of finding out what's already working. My point two was that physical and mental Stress symptoms can be very similar and can overlap. Anxiety, depression, sleep, tired and wired, waking mid-sleep, short fuse, frustration, brain fog, short-term memory, cholesterol, gut issues, diarrhea, constipation, indigestion, stomach acids, proton pump inhibitors, GERD, IBS. All of these things can be found in both those with PTSD and those without PTSD diagnosis. So focusing just on those symptoms as being, oh, that's probably a mental health issue, is totally setting you up for failure because you're not looking outside of the box at all of the different things that it could be and working on all of them together. And the last thing is leadership. Leadership needs to take more control over this. They need to start really diving in, checking out these therapies and checking out all of the different treatments and what work and try them out on themselves. If they are doing it, those under them will follow suit. So anybody here that is listening that is in training, when you are going to training, I know I was talking with one guy once about how when he's doing training, Lieutenant Dave Grossman has a really great book on combat, and you can download that book on your phone and have it with a Bluetooth speaker. That when guys are coming into your training sessions, you just play excerpts of that book. And you play excerpts of that book, like where when there's a shooting and your hearing can go off, or what it does to your cognitive thinking, or you can shit your pants. All of these things are things that can happen during certain situations in combat. And just playing that when guys come in, they'll be like, hey, what is this? That can even get them just starting to read a book. And you, as a leader, because you already know of this book and you're playing it for them, they're going to listen. And you never said anything about mental health. Building resiliency is a word that a lot of them will go for. A lot of them want to be pushing and improving themselves and getting that edge. Building that resiliency is quite often where you will get them, but using the word mental health is quite often where you'll lose them. So why keep using a word that has a negative connotation? All right, let me know what you guys think. We are here to help. If any of you do have physical stress symptoms and you would like help with those, let me know. That's what we do. Email us support@911lifestyle.com and we are absolutely here to help. Comment below with any other ways that you feel that your services are missing out on ways that they can be helping you, ways they can be helping your families, ways they can be helping support you. It's not a one size fits all, so let us know. Support@911lifestyle.com.